All right. Let me say special greetings, yes, and welcome to all of you who are already here. This evening is yet another journey in the milestone of we having this type of discussions here. And so I always love and appreciate your presence each and every time. I am feeling sort of in a different mood this evening. And so just before I go any further, let me just say this before I continue. In terms of having the good Lord above, bless the words that come forth tonight from my lips. Bless the meditation of my heart, my thought processes, and may it be some sort of encouragement and some sort of empowerment to somebody out there who may be going through at this time. And let these utterances tonight that we will be sharing with each other, not just the words, but sort of an inspiration. And I ask, whatever I ask tonight, I place it in the spiritual realm at this time, knowing fully well that it's just a matter of time for it to be materialized in the spirit, in the physical realm, that is the space in which we live. And so that is what I wanted to share with us tonight in terms of my beginning tonight, because I really and truly believe that we are on the cusp of something very, very big. Something is about to break. Our night-long journey, as it were, our dark periods, this dawn is soon approaching. And so I just want to encourage each and every one of us at this time to just tarry yet a little longer. And indeed, our hearts will be glad indeed. Thank you, folks. That is what I wanted to start with. That is how I wanted to start. I just felt moved in that direction tonight. And so whenever it is said the Spirit leads you to say something, you better obey. So yes, all of you who are already here, thank you very much for your eyes and ears. Those of you who are in Dominica, those of you in the regional space in which we live, and those of you further afield. Earlier today, about 4 o'clock my time, which was already in the wee hours of the morning, I got a call from my brother from Zimbabwe. He said to me that he will try to stay up and listen to some of the utterances tonight. So my brother, good morning to you in a very, very special way indeed. My friends in Russia, yes, I have a very good buddy in Russia. She too always try. Although their system over there does not cater for that sort of interconnection via the outside world, but you know, with social media, there's always a leak. There's always something that you can tap into to know what is happening outside of your space. And so my Russian friend, good morning to you as well. Folks, this evening, well, let me first apologize for me not being with you guys last week in the flesh, but I was with you guys in the spirit. Last week, the body just couldn't make it. When I reached home, getting ready to eat something after a very tired day, it was 5 minutes to 6 o'clock. And so I say, Lofty, nah, don't stretch it tonight. So you can well imagine now, there's a backlog. And so we have to move with a certain level of alacrity tonight to get things back on track so that we can continue on next week with our usual conversations about helping build our country, Dominica. Yes? So folks, this evening in terms of an update as to where we're going, I'm going to give you guys just a brief snapshot as to where that case is at, that tear gassing matter that we, when I say we, Artie, Marty, and myself, we're appealing through the lawyer, Ms. Cara Shillingford, So I'm going to just give you guys a brief update because this case is all about you, or more about you than it is about two people out here and myself. You guys have been pledging your funds so far to see that case go on and continue. So it is all well and good that you guys get, periodic updates as to where things are. So first of the bat that is on or will be laid on your chest tonight. Secondly, on the agenda, we're going to deal with a situation where, to the best of my knowledge, this bail application that was made for and on behalf of Mr. Jonathan Lera, an accused suspect. He was charged with a very brutal murder of two people in the south of Dominica, and not just two people, two Canadians, two foreigners, and a very well-known businessman around the globe in the name of Mr. Daniel Langlois. Mr. Daniel Langlois and his partner, that is Miss Dominic, they were both brutally murdered on about December 2023. And so, following that, two men, Mr. Robert Snyder, an American, and Mr. Jonathan Lera, an American as well, they were both picked up trying to escape from Dominica, it is alleged, and they were charged with that sort of brutal crime subsequently. So I'm going to give you an update as to what is taking place based on what I am hearing from a very factual end. What about that bail application that was posed to the court, the High Court that is in Dominica, sometime Tuesday of this week, and the prosecution team responded Friday, yesterday. So you're going to hear that. You're going to hear as well a letter. I'm going to read to you guys a letter that was penned by Civic Vibes. That is the NGO that I am part of, and a number of other people, Alvin Thomas included, he being the co-host, whereby after the delegates conference, for want of a better term, by the Dominica Labour Party in Vickers on the 10th of November, where Mr. Prime Minister, let me give them the proper handles at this time, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, sorry. Navia, my friend, good evening to you. Navia, help me out there, because it's her Prime Minister in Grenada. So Mr. Deacon Mitchell, a very young man, came to Dominica and basically uttered some words in Dominica at that DLP conference. You're going to hear a letter that we from Civic Vibes penned to him, send it to his email, his professional email, so he got it laid on his PC, and I would want to think that he saw that letter and digested that letter. It is left to him if you choose to respond or not, but at least he cannot see. He don't have an idea as to some of the thoughts that are running or running through the veins of the Dominicans after his engagement at this DLP delegates conference. Also too, we wrote that very same letter and copied it to or forwarded it to Mr. Philip J. Pierre, that is the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. Older, upper in years, but he was there, and he too uttered some words. And we at Civic Vibes, we did not mix our words, as it were, to let him as well know exactly how we felt, and by extension, the people of Dominica, as to what we described in the letter, which you'll be hearing later, come in and meddle or mingle in our own local political affairs in Dominica. So you'll be hearing that letter at length. If time permits, it's already in circulation on social media. I just posted it sometime earlier. But you'll be hearing inserts of that letter that, let me track back. We also, after we forwarded these two letters to the prime ministers of their respective countries, we saw it fit, or prudent that is, because we know how some of these men in high office operate. And so we did not want them to get that letter and keep it a secret. So we also copied these letters to all the media outlets in the region, in the island. And so we'll be, if time permits, I'll be letting you hear at least one a media man in St. Lucia. I think his name is Mr. Timothy Paulion. I'm being told he's an award-winning journalist in St. Lucia. He read some excerpts of that letter and basically quoted us as to our feelings, our mood, as to the interference, unnecessarily so that is, of these two prime ministers, bringing the weight of the prime minister's office in what we in Dominica have come to know as the DLP Delegates Conference. So we'll be hearing that later in just a bit. Also, there's a letter that Mr. Sean Douglas ran my way in light of, at that same delegate conference, you saw and heard the son of Rosie Douglas, Mr. Tiani B. Hansen. He basically had his say at that delegates conference as well, where he said he went back home. And most of us, if not all of us, heard his utterances. Since then, we have not been hearing, we have not heard from Mr. Tiani, outspoken Tiani, I must say. We have not been hearing much about him. And so we have not been hearing his utterances after that move by he going back home to what he said. It is the party that his father was the founder or part founder thereof. So we'll be going through a letter that Sean Douglas and the same Tiani B. Hansen penned sometime back in 2014, whereby it was confirmed to me by Sean Douglas that these words that you'll be hearing in just a while, the two gentlemen, that is Sean Douglas and Tiani B. Hansen, they sent it out as a press release in Dominica to the different media outlets. And so obviously they had to pen their signature to that letter, basically authenticating those writings coming from them. So I'll be letting you hear what was their thinking then and what is their thinking now, especially in the light of Mr. Tiani B. Hansen. As he said, he went back home to the party that was and still is very, very dear to his heart. Also too, I will be touching on a situation that I believe a lot of people choose not to touch. But if you know me very well, there's not much in the public domain that I will not touch once I've given it prior thought, serious thought, and I think it is worth putting out there, disseminating out there in the public. I will spell it out as well. So this week we heard some utterances from Joshua Francis, that is the former Parlor Rep of the Roseau South constituency. We heard him on Q95 airwaves this week, Thursday that is, I believe, with Matthias Pilty Jr. And so based on what he had to say then, I listened very, very intently, and I will try to give my own 2 pence as to what he said and how I think that we can do justice in terms of moving forward as opposition forces in Dominica. So once we have settled with Brother Joshua Francis, then I will give you an idea just who are our 2 guests for tomorrow's program on the civic vibes end. And so that should sort of bring us up to the 8 o'clock mark tonight, because all what I said there, it is much, much information to be dispensed tonight. So all I ask of you now, folks, is wherever you're sitting, make yourself feel very comfortable, be it in your drawing room, your cars, your living room, in your room, under a tree, wherever you are. Just sit tight, stay tight, because, as I normally say, when we take flight, we will not be touching down, not until about 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. So those of you who are sick, whatever your sickness is at this time, be it a medical situation, be it a financial sickness, which I know a lot of people have in Dominica, a spiritual sickness, whatever it is, psychologically you are not well, whatever it is, I just beseech the good Lord, blessings on you at this time, and may you be touched from the crown of your head to the sole of your feet, and healing be administered to that situation in this very present hour. Those of you elderly folks who are shut in, you cannot do much. I pray for you guys as well. Keep you in my thoughts and prayers. And whenever I visit you guys always, encourage me by telling me of your good old stories that never grow old. It's like good old wine. It only gets better with time. I appreciate those stories very much. I appreciate your life experience. And so keep them coming. I learn from them very, very well. And I pray to God that he keeps you there for much longer so that not just me, but other young people could learn from you and they could take the good of your experiences and try to make Dominica a much better place indeed. I want to thank each and every one of you who are here. Please share that live information. Make someone know that that program is on indeed. All right. Folks, let me start by telling you, going back that is, for the people who are on the live feed at this time and who, you guys are not in the know. In December of 2018, a number of Dominicans, we assembled in Roseau, that is our city center, on a street, on a junction, Castle Street, Church Street, close to that utility company or electricity company. We stood there as a 500 strong team, and we were basically demanding for a freer, fairer, and transparent process as it pertains to the process that deals with electing and rejecting governments. That is in a nutshell what that assembly was all about. And so I was the main organizer then of that event under the leadership or under the stewardship of the CCM movement in which I led then. And so I know my rights. And in execution of my rights, I placed an ad out there calling the people together, let us talk. The Constitution of Dominica affords me that right. It afforded us that right then, and it still affords us that right today. So there's nothing rocket science about meeting as a group, assembling in your country, and talking about your country's issues, whether they are good, the bad, or the ugly. I understand all rights come with responsibilities. And so is in that vein now, I want to tell us that we were exercising our rights and we chose not to trample on anybody else's right that day in question, the 15th of December 2018. We did not. Lo and behold, that meeting got on the way around 10 o'clock in the morning, that is, and it went throughout the day very peaceful a meeting. No stones were hurled, no bottles were hurled, nobody was seen with a cutlass, a knife, any weapon whatsoever. People were just speaking as it relates to how they felt about the process of electing or rejecting governments. At about 3:45 on that day, the police in Dominica, they were gathered there for the entire day. And about that time, they decided on themselves that they have heard enough. And so they decided to throw tear gas. I cannot vouch for what I'm saying now, but a lot of people said it was expired tear gas into a crowd of 500 and more Dominicans standing for our rights. And so when that happened on that unfortunate day, it has already been recorded in the history of Dominica, where people stood and exercising their rights, and the police, they as a department decided to throw tear gas, things that will have you have watery eyes, burning nose, and everything that goes with the effects and symptoms of tear gas, CS gas it is called. And so yours truly did not take that lying down or sitting down. I made the call to a number of other people. Some persons were scared to put their name or attach their signature to what they suffered. And so I well understand that. But 2 other people joined me, banned me, and we decided to take action, legal action that is against the police and the state. Because the police got the authority from the state to do whatever they did to the people who were there standing for rights. And so that complaint was lodged in the High Court sometime in January of 2019. It stayed like 5 years in the legal system. Because Dominica legal system, I can tell you, for those of you especially who overseas, and you don't know, let me tell you, Dominica legal system, it is like, I can best describe it as when your sink in your kitchen or your bathroom, it is clogged, it is blocked. And so you have that backing up of waste water. Nobody wants that. That is how, best of my knowledge, I can compare the system, the legal system, the court system, the judiciary part of things in Dominica, where it is concerned. So you have a number of cases there just, I'm saying, in legal limbo. They don't know if they come in, they don't know if they go in, but they are there. And so after 5 long years of that case in the court, Mr. George Colin Williams, he took it up in July of 2024. This year. That matter was ventilated in the court for 2 days. So we started on the 18th, it went through the 19th, and it ended on the 19th. Having heard from both sides, our side and the state side. On October, yes, I hope I'm getting that date right, October 6th, because before I kept saying it was September, so correction then. October 6th, after some months, this judge handed down his decision. And what he heard from both sides, he sided, or he believed what the state said, where they said to the court and to him that the force that they used on the people, which was, I am saying now, unnecessarily so, he said that force was justified based on what he heard. And so as part of his decision, it was ordered by the 3 of us who took that matter to court that we would have to meet the cost, whatever it costs the state to defend themselves. Up to now, we are not in the know of that figure because I guess the state got wind that we would be appealing the matter. And so I guess in hindsight, they did not give us a figure that we would have to pay 3 of us, split it a third each, that we would have to pay to the state, that they would reasonably say it took them to defend themselves. Having gone through the judgment, the decision of the judge, that is, with our lawyer, that is Ms. Carol Shillingford, she, us, and another of legal luminaries, not just in Dominica, but across the region, after watching and scrutinizing that judgment properly, there was this overarching view that the judge erred in his decision. And so we decided to appeal that decision. And so I can tell you guys, I can confirm to you that on the 15th of November, 2 weeks gone, about a week ago, yes, thereabout, we appeal that matter, and so the process now is set in stone, as it were. So that matter is now in the lap of the Court of Appeal. We are not just one judge like we had in the High Court, but about 3 or more judges will sit and hear the substantive matters of that case and sort of and sort of come back with their decision. Now, having said that, and that is where you guys came in and will continue to be part of that case, because that case really and truly, it stems around your right to assembly peacefully in your country. And so it's not a matter of we lost and we trying in the process to vindicate ourselves. No. If it was that, we lost fairly and squarely. If you know me properly, I'll be the first one to put up my hand and say, you know something, I did wrong, Arthur, you did wrong, this you did wrong. Let us just humble ourselves and pay up or man up. But that decision, that case really, it deals with your right, my right, our children's right, our unborn children's right to assembly, to talk with each other peacefully in the public place. That is what is the critical nature of that matter. That is why we will be challenging that matter all the way if needs be. Because something fundamentally wrong in our mind went wrong when the judge handed down his decision, saying to us, saying to the 500 plus people that were there, that we needed expressed permission from the police in Dominica to assembly. And our constitution affords us the right to do just that without any permission from anybody, be it a king, a pope, a pastor, or police. And so it's on that ground and more, we have decided to appeal that decision in the interest of all the people of Dominica. And by extension, the region. Because you know, we live in one regional space whereby we use the same court system, the High Courts, the Court of Appeal, and the CCG of late, some still with the Privy Council, to ventilate matters so that justice could be met. So if that decision was left unchecked or was left unchallenged, then somebody in Antigua and Barbuda, that case in Dominica, could be used against them in Antigua and Barbuda for standing up for their rights. And the police may have used tear gas on them in Antigua or anywhere in the region. And these people, that precedent would have been set. And that would have become part of the law in moving forward for the region now in which we live. And so when I spoke to a number of activists across the region, these folks are with us in Dominica, 210%. They're saying, go for it, guys. Because what happens in Dominica, sure, will reverberate in our country as well. Now, having said all that, people, when you put yourself on the front line and decide to take on any state, be it in Dominica, Russia, China, North Korea, wherever it is, that I am saying dictatorship is thriving or dictatorships are taking root, you have to be able to stand as a man or woman and defend what you are standing for. There must be some level of conviction, because the state is going to come at you, come after you with all your might. And so it's on that note, the state, all they have to do, it is to use my money, your money, to defend themselves against the people. So they don't have to look for money. There's no special fund that they have to tap into. The country's purse is at their disposal, and so they will use it in a willy-nilly fashion. The evidence of conviction comes in now when you, who is so convinced, have to dig deep in your pocket to defend what you believe, your belief, as it relates to your rights. And that is how critical, people, I want you guys to understand the predicament in which we are. So you may have heard about this matter. Oh, this guy, a little case in the court and check gas. No, people, it goes deeper than that. And so the first round in the High Court, where illustrious daughter of the soil, Cara Shillingford, led us in terms of her professional skills, we had to fork out 8,000 EC to represent ourselves in court, and by extension the people of Dominica. That is what it cost us to pay for legal fees. We are not talking about whatever the state would have come down on us with. That is out of the window for now, because we are appealing. So that 8,000, I can tell you guys, it was met. And so Cara is happy in terms of we meeting that figure in terms of her bill, her first bill. We, on her advice and other legal luminaries, decided to appeal the matter. And so the higher up you go in this judiciary thing, is the higher the risk and the higher the rewards as well. It goes both ways. So in the interest of transparency now, where you guys have been pouring in your funds, putting your money where your mouth is now, putting your money in what you speak about on the radio every day and talk in street corners about, you have helped us so far in terms of meeting or coming up with some of the appeals legal fee. And the appeal legal fee, it is in the tune of 1515 EC $1,000. The lawyer, Ms. Shillingford, basically asked us whether we could, after we cleared the 8,000 as a High Court, so that fee is gone, whether we could give her as a deposit 50% of that $15,000 rather, in order to file that matter. We agreed, and so with your help, and that is where on behalf of Afi and myself, and even Cara by extension, we want to thank you now, the people of Dominica, who stood and will continue to stand with yourself on that matter. And so we have managed so far, with a level of ease, I must add, to put into Cara's coffers so far $7,500 as part of the 50% which she was requesting of us to file that matter so that it could be appealed. Where we are now needing now another 7,500 EC, $100 that is, to punch in Cara coffers so that that bill, her fee, could be squared up. And so you will be hearing much more of us in the future, but I just decided let me use tonight's medium to sort of break it down so that we are all in the know as to how we move forward together as a people. And it is always good when the public is concerned and public funds now is concerned. It is always good to report back to the people. So I hope I made myself pretty clear on that first task in terms of tonight's engagement. If you guys want to contribute to that cause, which I am encouraging you to because it is your cause as well as my cause, Cara's office is the first choice of contact. So that please feel free to reach out to Cara and her office, her folks there. They are willing to accept your fine. Not to go there and say, oh, we pledge our support. No. Go there and make a donation, a financial donation, that is. We welcome the supporting words, but when you're in the court system, supporting words can only reach that far. We need larger shares now. And so her office is the first point of contact that we really want to prioritize now, you guys going into. Cara has put out there, when we held the press conference, her wire transfer information, her mobile banking information. If you guys need any one of those information, call yours truly, make contact with yours truly, and I will give you all the necessary information, all the details that you need in order to make that financial contribution moving forward. Arthi Mata is there. He's also picking up as well, putting it in Cara coffers. Yours truly as well. If you meet me on the street, put in Cara coffers as well. And so that is how we have been doing it, and that is how we'll continue to do it as a united effort in moving forward. And so again, I just want to thank, in a very, very big way, all of you so far who have thus far come or came forward and not just talk, but say, you know something, let me put my $100, put my $200, put my $1,000, put my $2,000, put my check, whatever the amount is, towards us as a people as it relates to the preservation of our rights. And folks, don't ever think your $5 is too little. We know we are living in very trying and challenging financial times, but instead of buying a beer that may get you into some kind of a health situation later on, put that $5 instead into your business in terms of the protection of your rights, so that when you're long gone, your children could be benefiting from the contribution of your $5. Do like the Macedonians of old. They didn't give out of their largesse. They gave out of their lack. And that is the kind of sacrificial giving as it pertains to your right you have to consider in moving forward. Some of you may ask, may be saying, but what are you talking about the Macedonians? The Macedonians were a special set of people in biblical times. You can read about them in the good old book. When they were asked to give, they were very, I shouldn't say poor. They were not at the higher echelon of the economical scale. They were the low end. But it is recorded that out of their lack, they gave. And that kind of giving is what will bring the necessary rewards, the blessings on you guys. So don't wait when you win the lottery for you to think of giving. Don't wait when you full up that bank account and it is pouring over from your cup onto your saucer for you to give. No. I'm beseeching you, whatever it is, be counting in that regard. You, as an individual, may not want to come and stand up in hot sun and protest like we did and continue to do. But you can make your dollar protest for you. You can make your dollar help fight that cause for you. And that is the mindset I want us to have or inculcate in moving forward. So some of you, I know, Lofty, I'm not coming on the street and do nothing. I'm fed up of that. If you have something that you can give financially, do that as well. It will go a long way. All right, folks, so that is it in terms of that segment, as we hurry on now to the other segment in the interest of time. Now, segment number 2. December 6, 2023. Last year, thereabout, we saw and heard of this very heinous crime that was committed or was done against two people, two Canadians that is, who lived in Dominica, who had this ecotourism business in the south of the country. They were brutally cut down in the name of Mr. Daniel Langlois and his partner, Dominic Marchand. But even before that brutality took place, these people, they were in this sort of back and forth with their neighbor. It is said that is Mr. Jonathan Lehrer. Just to contextualize it for us to understand, those of you who don't know about the background, the history, let me just give you some sort of, chronological order, how this thing panned out. So they didn't just meet them dead one day, no. There was this constant tug of war, this war of words between these two foreigners in the south of the country. Mr. Daniel Langwa, who got murdered, unfortunately so, he was there first in terms of investing in Dominica heavily, that touched lives in Dominica in meaningful ways, I must say. After Hurricane Maria, it is said, this guy basically used from his business to make the lives of Dominicans, especially the people of Soufriere and Scott's Head, much better. The brother built a bridge, not a bridge, a wharf with his money. He helped build a school with his money, I'm being told. He gave the people jobs at his business place. He helped in the community in terms of giving back. And so this brother was not just taken from Dominica. A matter of fact, he was not a passport seller. At least his name, his business name was not there on the government website as being a passport seller. On the contrary, the person who is accused of killing him in such brutal ways, he is a passport seller, or he was a passport seller. That is Mr. Jonathan Lehrer, who came after that businessman and set up this chocolate, whatever it is, business in the south of Dominica. And I can tell you, based on what I heard, and I am of the opinion that I can vouch with these people who said it, in terms of the giving back to community, it was like night and day between Mr. Langwa and Mr. Lehrer. Although Mr. Jonathan Lehrer, it is said, we saw his name there, his business name there, Boakotlet, that is, on the government's website as being a passport peddler. So he was well connected with the government of the day, which is the Dominica Labour Party, or whatever it is they call themselves. So you'd want to think he, having gained our resource through that connection, would have been giving back much more to the community and the country that afforded him that opportunity. But no, it was Mr. Langwa, on the other hand, and I am saying, referring to them now as biblical, an example. It was like Cain and Abel. In that Mr. Jonathan Lehrer, to me, based on what I heard and how it is panning out, was like Cain. He grabbed and grabbed and grabbed and grabbed. And Abel was the cheergiver, as it were. He gave. And here was this long outstanding dispute now about a road, a motorable road, which supposed to be belonging to the people of Dominica. None of them owned that road. You cannot own a public road. It is not accepted by the Constitution and our laws. You cannot own a beach. Even if you buy beachfront property, the beach belongs to the people of Dominica. You cannot own a road. It is a public road. It is not part of your property. It cannot be part of your property as per law. But here was this back and forth, this constant battle about who should be passing on the public road and who shouldn't be. And so the government of the day knew fully well of this tug of war, this war of words that was slinging back and forth between these two foreigners. And what did they do about it? Sort of a hands-off approach. I am saying, you heard Dennis Charles with a sort of crocodile tears, I am saying, in terms of her words, her utterances, when we got wind or word of that man's brutal death. Dennis Charles as Pal Rep, I am saying to you, ma'am, you could have done much more as the caretaker of the people to have stepped in and tried to put peace. I'm getting a notice my phone battery is running low. All right, I think we're good. But what did she do as Pal Rep? There was not that public outcry from her before. But when the man died, unfortunately so, when he was brutally cut down, for the want of a better term, you heard her in the public domain now doing as if she could fool somebody. And Miss Charles, I have nothing with you. I have nothing with you as a lady, Dennis Charles, whatever it is your surname is. Your extension surname is. I have nothing with you. I have an issue with you in terms of the portfolio in which you hold and held as the caretaker, the Pal Rep, the representatives of the people, of all the people of the south of Dominica. That is my issue, and my issue only. And so you knew of this back and forth, and you did not see it fit to step in as Pal Rep to try to intervene now as a lady of substance, a lady of valor. These positions, high positions that is, you guys bestow on yourselves. This position should mean something. And so if you cannot do good by these prestigious high positions, you need to step away. And so when you came to the public now with this sort of, I am saying like a child, whining in the public, I didn't buy it. You tried your very best to extricate yourself from the dilemma that was unfolding now. But it unfolded before, and you did nothing to try to put peace between two Dominicans. And so, Dennis Charles, I am telling you as a citizen of the Commonwealth of Dominica, you failed in that department. Your leadership in the South as Pal Rep, you did not do good by it. And so the death of Mr. Daniel Langlois and his partner could be placed on now. Some of the blood could be placed on you as Pal Rep, and by extension, the people in which you were working with as government. So this crocodile tears, this kind of a hypocritical and facade kind of language, it did not go down well with a number of people, including yours truly. I put no words in my mouth to tell it to you as is. Wherever you did right as a Pal Rep, once I know, I'll give you a kudos. But on that end, we are talking about that specific case tonight. You failed in that department, madam. End of story. So let's get back now to the chronological order of things. So after all this back and forth, Mr. Jonathan Lehrer, it is alleged, ended up being part and parcel of this man's and his partner brutal murder, whereby they were shot, it is said. After they were shot, acid, that very, very, how I should call it, liquid or substance that can eat bones, it can tear into bones, not even flesh. We are talking about flesh again. It can make bones turn into dust, literally. That substance, it is said, was poured on the dead. Their car in which they got shot and tear gas poured on them, that car was set ablaze. So you kill them once, you kill them twice, you kill them 3 times, and fourthly, finally, you try to throw a blazing car below a precipice to cover the crime or to conceal the crime. So if there's anybody that died 4 times, I am saying is Mr. Daniel Langwa and Ms. Dominic. After that, there was this investigation and manhunt for Mr. Jonathan Lehrer and another body, it is said allegedly, he brought into Dominica to help him commit that crime. That is Mr. Robert Snyder, another American. And let me just track back before I go forward. That back and forth that this gentleman had before the unfortunate incident, Mr. Daniel Langwa ended up winning whatever it is they had in terms of dispute in the High Court in Dominica. So the court sided with Mr. Daniel Langwa as to the proper use of that road. So whatever it is, the court stepped in and said, you know something, Mr. Jonathan, you are wrong. And so I don't know if it was that decision that triggered Jonathan Lehrer, it is alleged, and his co-conspirator, Mr. Snyder, which is, again, it is alleged, he brought into Dominica to help get rid of the one who got victory in the High Court against him. I don't know. I don't know. So when this manhunt was on, looking for Jonathan, looking for the other white man, they were not found in Soufriere. The police in Dominica, which I spoke of earlier, at least give them that. It is said, les dents chien blanc, dit blanc. Give the police that. They did not sleep on them like they normally do, as if they were in a coma. When it comes to proper investigation, they picked up these 2 men in terms of intelligence from the Grand Bay police in Grand Bay. That is some miles away from Soufriere. They picked them up, and again it is alleged that they were about to flee the country. That too will be ventilated in the court when that case begins in earnesty. But that is what is said out there. And so they were picked up, arrested, questions, investigations gone on. Finally, they were charged with the brutal cutting down of these 2 people. And so from December of last year, they were placed in stock farm on remand. April of this year, 15th to be precise, their lawyers, Mr. Lennox Lawrence being the lead, came to court and applied for bail, citing that Mr. Lehrer, Jonathan Lehrer, that is, he has some medical issue, namely prostate. That is a situation that men normally suffer with, especially past 40. It is recorded scientifically. And so he's saying, in an application to the court, that is Lehrer's lawyers, our client has prostate issues, which is life-threatening. He may die as a result. And so our country, Dominica, cannot afford him proper treatment for that. And so we want the court now to set him loose, put him on bail. And on that same court paper, it is recorded he intends to go to Texas for medical treatment for the prostate issue. And so on the 15th of April 2024, this year, that bail application was denied. The judge said and agreed with the prosecution team, Mr. Jonathan is too well connected economically, that is, and so he is a flight risk. And there's a very strong chance. Now, I am interpreting it so, the judge may not have said it verbatim. I am interpreting it so that you guys could better understand the legal lingo. That if Mr. Jonathan would leave Dominica, then that case may become very, very distant in our memory. And so bail was denied on the 15th of April 2024. About 7 months later, this week, his lawyers made another application to the court, citing the same reason. This time, they included, in addition to that prostate and health issue, inhumane conditions at the Stockholm State Prison, which now will contribute or have contributed to him getting worse. That inhumane treatment, they call it. And so the prosecution side had up until Thursday of this week at 4 o'clock to respond to that application before the court for bail for Mr. Jonathan Lehrer. And folks, those of you who have your thinking caps on, think very deep. Think outside of the box now. Don't think between the box that the people want to make you think in. Think outside of the box as you are trying to mentally make things, understand how things flow. Two men are accused of brutalizing, killing these people. And for some reason, it is only one man that on 2 occasions have applied to the court seeking bail. Think about that. That will come in very, very handy in the not so distant future. Keep that at the back of, keep that somewhere in your storage. Robert Snyder is up at the Stockholm prison as well, co-accused with Jonathan Lehrer. But it's only Jonathan Lehrer we have been hearing that is applying to the court, seeking to be out on bail. Okay? So, to sum up that scenario, the defense team punching that application to the court on Monday or Tuesday of this week. And the funny thing about the court system, if you did not know, once a lawyer or lawyers have a client on remand and they want bail for him or her, they can just apply to the court for bail. And the prosecution team, the state, the police side, have no prior notice of the accused applying to the court for release. They have no knowledge of that. So it is the court now, once that application comes before them, to inform now the state's side, the prosecution team, hey, we have an application for bail before us. We need your feedback. We need your response. We need you to come to respond. And that is done before judge, magistrate, jury, whatever it is. Whoever is set up to taking that analysis or information. So, when that was made Monday or Tuesday of this week, from the defense side, the prosecuting side said to the judge, to the court, that they did not have enough time to prepare, to respond. So they asked for some more time. And the court through the judge said to them, okay, we will give you up till Thursday gone, 4 p.m. to punch your response in the court as to why you are objecting bail or if you are not objecting to bail. So that was done. And Friday of this week, that was yesterday, the prosecution basically did what they had to do before the court. And the judge heard from them. I am saying now, in an ordinary case, you would have that judge or another judge or whoever it is sitting on that bail application to hear the two matters and give the decision off the cuff after hearing from both sides. But that judge, it is said Mr. what's his name? Colin Williams, chose to stay his decision. So his decision is pending. So having heard from both sides, he decided to take some time to assess what he heard and to come back. I am suggesting or thinking in the not so distant of a future to come back to decide or give his decision on what he heard from the prosecution and the defense. So as we speak, Jonathan Lehrer is still waiting at Stockton prison to hear what Judge Colin Williams have to say about a second round of trying to get him out of the state prison on 1, medical ground, and 2, inhumane situation at the Stockton State Prison. Folks, that is just the bare facts to the best of my knowledge. I really and truly wouldn't want to go deeper into my own thoughts now on the matter, because it is not really about me, it is about the facts. What I can tell you in winding up, there has been a serious public outcry as to that man, Jonathan Lehrer, not, I repeat, not getting bail. And somewhere, I remember, somewhere I read, it is right there, I cannot really pinpoint on who that judge is now, but somewhere in the legal system, in our jurisdiction, I heard from a judge's mouth that whenever a decision is being handed down by a judge, especially in the case of where the public is concerned, the court always has its ears leaning to hear, to get a sense of where the public head is at. And so that is what I want to rest with, and that is where I want to rest it tonight. So don't think, people, when you post on social media, when you call a radio station, when you stand up outside the courthouse like was done before, and say in no uncertain terms that you are opposing to bail as well, for such a man or men charged with such heinous crimes, the court is not inclined to your words. The court may choose to listen, the court may choose not to listen, but that doesn't mean they are not taking note. I end. Folks, point number 3 as we're moving on. Let me just see if I can get you engaged in terms of some of your comments here as we are moving on here. Patricia Fontaine writes, it should be inhumane to all. That is Patricia Fontaine remarks here. Yvonne Abel writes here, tricks before he did the act. He should know he's a sick man. sorry. He have money. His doctor can visit him here. That is what Yvonne Ebel is writing here. Yvonne Ebel comes back and says, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. He will be in stock farm for the hearing. Chun says, he should know he had conditions before he acted. Live and let live is all I can advise him. Let me see if I can get some of your comments coming in here again before we move on. Ferdinand Lawrence, right? That's a good question to put before his attorney, who has concluded that his client is innocent. Why was his client in Ranby? Dave Bertrand writes, and after it was suspected that both Daniel and Dominic were murdered by Jonathan, the lawyer of Jonathan went to his house. Well, Dave, I cannot vouch for what you're saying there, so I choose not to continue in your comments. That is what is alleged to have happened, but I don't know that for a fact. So the road you're going down there, I will abut your statement there about collecting evidence and whatever it is. I don't know that for a fact. All right, Dave? Ferdinand Lawrence comes back and says, based on her own words, Dennis Charles incriminated herself in that interview. Unique Bear says, good night, Lofty Dira. Mali Osri writes, Dennis, anyway, Mali, that is not the time and place for that comment. We are not dealing with personalities here. Let us deal with the matters of substance. Chun says, so simple as that. That's why this government should come straight and let them alleged criminals understand that they will run from the word start. Velma Joseph writes, they don't even care about us or even about the people that come in Dominica to invest. Some more comments coming in here. More power to you, Lofty, my fellow freedom fighter. Velma Joseph, thank you very much. Good evening to you, and continue the fight as well. Chiquito Thomas says, the ones out here that shilling them should get arrested. Carol Oliver Chibroni writes, he also built a jetty for the people. Yes, we spoke about that earlier. Chiquito comes back and writes, they want to sit back and let somebody else save them, which is sickening. Any more comments? Any more comments before we sort of take flight? Alifia Desha, no bill. Edna Ernest writes, if he did an inhumane thing, he is in the right place to get inhumane treatment. Malios comes back and say, I don't care, not one bit. Well, I know you don't care, Malios, but at the end of the day, this program here, and all programs I am part of, there's a certain standard, and we don't look at personalities, we don't look at persons, you know. Fall short, no. We look at the issues, and we deal with the issues, and we move on, all right? That is what I think will help build a better country. Does Dominica have extradition treaty with America if they give these criminals bail? Elunia Lacroix is writing here, no. I can tell you straight up based on my research, Dominica and America does not have treaty signed between them. So if this brother goes to Texas, as he says, for medical treatment, then there's nothing, absolutely nothing signed between Dominica and America to get this brother back here through the law enforcement means, right? So, no, straight up. Okay, let's move on, Dominicans, from that much talked about subject matter. And let us move now to, as I was telling you earlier, of a letter that Civic Vibes and the Electoral Reform Coalition, well, Electoral Reform Coalition, just to be straight up with you guys, did a letter and sent it to the media people in Grenada and St. Lucia, basically decrying the fact that JPA and Mr. Deacon Mitchell was here interfering, as they say, in Dominica political matters. So they sent their correspondence to the media. Civic Vibes, we also copied our letters to the media, but more importantly, we got through some contacts, the official email addresses of both prime ministers. And so we landed that letter in their official email. And so we knew for fact that they did receive it. Whatever they are prepared to do about it, as I said before, it is left to them. So right about now, I'm going to read now from that letter so that you guys could be in the know as to what we penned to these prime ministers in terms of our discuss. Yeah? The letter, the Civic Vibes letter, it is on a Civic Vibes letterhead. It is dated the 15th of November 2024, bearing in mind that that delegates conference was held on Sunday 10th November 2024. It says here to Mr. Philip J. Pierre, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, and Mr. Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada. Civic Vibes is a civil society organization committed to promoting civic engagement and addressing critical issues in the Commonwealth of Dominica. We are compelled to express our deep concerns regarding your role as guest speakers at the DLP Delegates Conference, where remarks were made not only divisive, but also disturbingly inflammatory. The repeated references to enemies, quote unquote, raised serious questions. Was that an implication that those who hold opposing political views are adversaries? It is bewildering that as two serving prime ministers, you would exhibit such a dismissive attitude towards the opposition, an essential component of any democratic society. What did you mean by that phrase, open quote, protecting the victory, close quote? Have you forgotten that the role of the opposition in representing the voices of Dominicans? It is a known and accepted fact that in any democracy, the majority will have their way, but the minority must have their say. Civic Vibes find your words appalling and sees them as unwarranted interference in Dominica's political landscape. We firmly register our disapproval of this behavior and demand a higher standard of respect to the Dominican people and to the wider region. Is it possible that your insensitive attitude could be based on ignorance regarding the following crucial issues impacting democracy in Dominica? If that is the case, then here are the facts. 1. Are you aware that there have been no free, fair, and transparent elections in Dominica for the past 4 election cycles? 2. Are you aware that Dominica is the only OECS country with no voter ID cards? 3. Are you aware that election observers have recommended the use of voter ID cards for the past 4 election cycles? However, the DLP administration have stood in the way of that becoming a reality. 4. Are you aware that the voters list contains more than 70,000 eligible voters, whereas the population of Dominica, as per a census in 2011, is 72,000 plus? 5. Are you aware that on July 5th, 2022, the CCJ advised Dominicans that there were tents in that same list and advised against going into any other election without them being remedied? Despite this warning, snap elections were called in Dominica on December 6, 2022, in total disregard for law and good governance in our country. Are you aware that in 2020, Justice Dennis Byron was commissioned and was paid more than 750,000 EC dollars to advise on electoral reform, and none of what he recommended has been implemented? Are you aware that the chairman of the Electoral Commission, who is supposed to be neutral, is a passport seller? That program is administered under the Prime Minister's portfolio. Last paragraph reads, in case you are not aware of the situation in Dominica, please accept this letter as a source of information regarding these important matters. Both St. Lucia and Grenada seem to be experiencing a semblance of democratic principles as evidenced in your recent election as Prime Minister. Final line reads, Civic Vibes hopes you will consider extending your support to Dominica in achieving in its own democratic goals. Best regards. And that letter was signed by yours truly. So folks, that is the letter that was sent to the two prime ministers of Grenada and St. Lucia on they being engaged here, not to help the people of Dominica by and large, but to help a group, the Dominica Labour Party that is, or whatever is left of the Dominica Labour Party. And you heard times without number, especially the more senior man among them, talked about calling opposition forces as enemies and talking about protecting their winning legacy, protecting the vote, protecting whatever they have to protect. A number of times Mr. GPA alluded to such. And so it is in that regard and more that we felt compelled, as the letter states, to write in no uncertain terms to let these men know that the Dominican people, at least some of us who are not in agreement with the governance of our country, what they did in terms of coming to Dominica, it was in and out of itself meddling in our own local politics in Dominica. Now, as part of that letter being in the hand of some of the media people in both Grenada and St. Lucia, we had one radio host in the name of Mr. Timothy Polion. He basically referred to that letter on a radio program of his in St. Lucia. And so it's not long of an expose based on he referencing that letter that he got from us. And let me just let you hear what this brother had to say to the St. Lucian people as it relates to the letter of concern that he got from Civic Vibes and the ERC, Electoral Reform Coalition in Dominica. Let's take a listen to this in just a bit.
It was on November 10th of this year that the ruling Dominica Labour Party convened its annual conference of the delegates. In attendance, St. Lucia's Prime Minister and leader of the SLP, as well as Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada. They were in attendance and they addressed the gathering there. And I found it very undiplomatic, in a carefree kind of manner, irresponsible manner as well, when the Prime Minister of St. Lucia made reference to the opposition parties in the sub-region and saying that the governing parties, particularly Labour parties in the sub-region, were fighting a common enemy. Sounded like the kind of statement that Donald Trump would make. But let's listen to Mr. Philip J. Pierre addressing the conference of delegates of the DLP over in Dominica on the 10th of November.
We have a common enemy. This enemy is not only climate change, is not only unemployment, is not only crime, is not only the uneven playing field that we have to deal with in the international community. But my brothers and sisters, we do not need to look too far to understand why we must stand together and why we must work together. If you follow the news in Dominica, if you follow the news in Grenada, and you follow the news in St. Vincent and St. Lucia, you will see that the same forces that are fighting Skerrit are the same forces that are fighting Ralph. The same forces that are fighting Deacon are the same forces that are fighting Philip J.P. in St. Lucia. Brothers and sisters, we have a common enemy.
So a kind of authoritarian kind of system that we have possibly in those islands. Because those prime ministers, if you listen to what Mr. Philip J.P. said, as if those prime ministers, they should not be criticized at all. They're beyond criticism. And that is absolutely dangerous. It is dangerous. I mean, who are you guys? Skerrit and Philip J. Pierre and Dr. Raul Gonzalez over in St. Vincent, that you ought not to be criticized by people who do not see eye to eye with you with regard to the quality of your leadership, the policies that the political policies, the policies, those actions that you are taking in the name of the people of the country. People have a right to speak out on those issues, and don't see them as enemies if what they're saying appears to be detrimental to your stay in office. It is a clarion call that is being made, and maybe you should engage in kind of introspection to see whether there is merit in the criticism that is being leveled at you. So in response to this whole talk of fighting a common enemy, two organizations, Civic Vibes and the Electoral Reform Coalition in Dominica, they have criticized the Prime Ministers Philip J.P. of St. Lucia and Dickon Mitchell of Grenada for their attendance and remarks at the DLP Delegates Conference in Dominica. Both organizations expressed concerns over the Prime Minister's comments and their perceived disregard for ongoing calls for electoral reform in Dominica. In a strongly worded letter, Civic Vibes called out the two leaders for their divisive and inflammatory remarks at the DLP event. The group took issue with repeated references to enemies and the idea of protecting the victory, suggesting those remarks dismissed the role of political opposition in Dominica. Civic Vibes stressed that opposition voices are a critical part of any healthy democracy, reminding the leaders that the majority will have their way, but the minority must have their say. And you just have to take note of the behavior of those same guys who are in government right now. When they are in opposition, they have the right to speak, and they speak loudly. They're very critical of the governments that are in power in the various islands, and we can't hold or have anything against them for taking on such a posture, because they are the loyal opposition, and various points of view must contend. We have to create the environment where this is not only permissible, but this is also acceptable. Otherwise, what we will have in those islands is a one-party state. And the likes of Philip J.P. of St. Lucia and Dickon Mitchell of Grenada, they were never at those conferences, the annual conference of the DLP, at least, offer some advice with regard to electoral reform, with regard to cleaning up the voters list over in the Nature Isle, Dominica, where, for example, you had some effort that was made to reform the electoral system, and thousands upon thousands of dollars would have been paid so that this can be made, this can take place. And the former head of the OECS Supreme Court and the former head of the CCJ, Justice Dennis Barron, he was given that task about 2 years now. What has been done with the recommendation so that the electoral process in Dominica will be democratized, bring some kind of democratic process. So that people can feel that the electoral process in Dominica is one that is fair, as is the case in a number of the other territories in the Caribbean. But they never travel to those territories to offer advice to their fellow leaders. It is basically just to embolden them, just to encourage them to see opposition parties and those people who oppose some of their programs and so on as enemies, common enemies, and they do not see the need for governments in the sub-region to pay attention to what opposing voices, opposing forces are saying regarding their leadership. Let's take a calls.
All right, so we'll not be hearing any calls, but I just want to thank Mr. Timothy Polio, I believe is his name, an award-winning journalist, I'm being told, in St. Lucia, for basically expounding and amplifying, as it were, our views in Dominica to the St. Lucian people about our utterances of their Prime Minister at this delegate conference of the DLP. So Mr. Polio, you and your team at Newspin in St. Lucia, thank you very, very much indeed. We do appreciate your efforts in that regard. All right, folks, let me just, before we move across to the next segment, we're like 7:30, half hour to go. I doubt we'll be able to go through all the material prepared tonight, but wherever we stop off, we'll continue from there next week. Yeah? Let me just see now some of your comments, if there are any, before I move to the next segment here. Where are your comments before we move on? All right, Madeline Augustine, sorry, just tuned in out for a while, Lofty. Alan Pierre writes, blessed evening, brothers. Okay. Mali Austria writes, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia is scared he will be going out of office for the next election. Marshall Lawrence writes, well put together, Lofty. Now they know indeed. Well, Marshall, it is our duty, our responsibility as well, to make them know that our plight in Dominica is that much, and they come in and not adding any value to enhancing what they are seemingly enjoying in their countries. We have no other choice but to let them know in no uncertain terms. All right, folks, let us move on now to the next segment in the interest of time. I'm going to now read to you guys a letter, as alluded to earlier, a letter that was signed by Mr. Sean Douglas, former press secretary of the Dominica Labour Body. He was part of that some time back. And also, well, Sean is the nephew of deceased Rosie Douglas, and also son of Rosie Douglas, Mr. Tiani Bihansen. And so that now leads us right into a good platform for the next conversation to come. In that, at that same delegate conference we spoke of earlier, we saw the son of Rosie Douglas, Mr. Tiani Bihansen, came on stage and basically told us that he has now decided to go back home in terms of his political affinity. And I need not repeat some of his words. You guys heard for yourself. But let me just do something here so that you guys could follow with me here as we try to run through a letter here. This letter, or this press release rather, that was dated October 26, 2014. And it says, for immediate press release. And that statement came from and signed by Mr. Sean R. Douglas, telephone number 235-2955, and Mr. Tiani I. Bihansen, telephone number 265-7125. That statement to the press, that is, was some of the sentiments back then in 2014 as it relates to the Dominican Labour Party and their way of running the country. It says, the position of Tiani Bianzen and Sean Douglas on the renaming of Melville Hall Airport and the banishment of the legacies of Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles. So it starts with number one. It says, the decision of Roosevelt Skerrit administration to rename the Melville Hall Airport the Douglas Charles Airport is a cynical ploy by this regime to sideline these two great leaders to a mere footnote in the annals of Dominica history. 2. This elaborate renaming ceremony on Monday, August 27th is part of the regime's re-election strategy to win back disaffected labor rights and undecided voters who feel that the Skerrit government has abandoned the ideals, principles, and essential core labor values of not just Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles, but also that of Edward Oliver LeBlanc and Mr. Mike Douglas. 3. Despite government's investment of over $130 million at Melville Hall, the airport has no future. Rosie himself recognized that 15 years ago, on his last visit to the United States as Prime Minister in September 2000, he started discussions with the Chinese government through the embassy there on the establishment of diplomatic relations. 4. More than 14 years ago, the Chinese agreed to fund the construction of an international airport with US $300 million in Dominica, with work to commence in March of 2001. The contents of the memorandum, that is the MOU, which Rosie Douglas signed with the Chinese, was scheduled to be announced by him in his National Day address on November 3rd, 2000. 5. Upon the death of Rosie Douglas in October 2000, Pierre Charles continued his dialogue with the People's Republic of China through the then Chinese ambassador to the United Nations and a senior Chinese diplomat who assisted the late Foreign Minister of St. Lucia, Mr. George Odlum, with the switching of diplomatic relations from Taiwan to China. The discussion centered on an international airport, an economic zone, and deep water port for Portsmouth and ships to transport agricultural produce. 6. The 4 pillar projects agreed by Mr. Skerrit, David Seal, and Grace Tong with the Chinese government in 2004 are useful projects, but these initiatives have not contributed in any significant way to the transformation of Dominica's economy. A great opportunity to construct an international airport with grant funding was unfortunately missed. In addition, we were also witnessing the takeover of the commercial district in Roseau by Chinese businessman, a development that Rosie Douglas advised against in 1992. Point number 7 by the then Sean Douglas and Tiani Bianzen in terms of their disgust with the Dominican Labour Party reads, Roosevelt Skerrit has failed to outline a long-term vision for the country. Rosie Douglas put forward the idea of Dominica building closer ties with Guadeloupe and Martinique as a strategy towards a closer alignment with the European Union. Pierre Charles advocated Dominica's long-term objective to become energy independent by 2012 at the United Nations World Summit on Sustainable Development in South Africa in 2002. Number 8, Mr. Skerrit has a narrow mindset that aid can solve Dominica's problem. In tandem with this is his skewed thought process that believes people can be pacified by doling out money and other forms of patronage from his office in Roseau and at his home in Vigas. Point number 9. As massive amounts of aid from Venezuela flowed into Dominica in the last 9 years, we have seemed to compromise our maritime delimitation with Venezuela with respect to Bird Rock. While we may not be able to wrest sovereign control of Bird Rock from Venezuela, we believe its legal definition from the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea is highly desirable. We should not accept our economic zone on the West Coast being reduced to 100 miles instead of 200 miles because Bird Rock is not yet legally defined. Maritime delimitation has to be one of our national objectives. That was the position of Ruzi and Pierre Charles. Point number 10. It says here, another major departure is the deliberate strategy to destroy the development of the Democratic Labour Party, where organizational development, accountability, criticism, self-criticism, and good governance are the guiding principles. Under Roosevelt's carry, what we see is a small clique closely aligned to the leader, steeped in self-serving behavior and posturing as advocates of the new dispensation. 11. The coalition with freedom had its risk, and what we have seen over the last several years is the, open quote, freedomization of the Labour Party. Let me take that again. 11. The coalition with freedom had its risk, and what we have seen over the last several years is the, open quote, freedomization, close quote, of the Dominican Labour Party and the systematic weeding out of stalwarts associated with Ruzi and Pierre Charles and the calculated strategy to destroy the Pierre Charles political machinery in Grand Bay. Number 12. There has been a deliberate strategy by Roosevelt Scary to distance himself from the internationalist political values which Ruzi and Pierre Charles espoused. One of them is the right to self-determination and support for liberation struggles. The issue of Western Sahara's right to self-determination is a case in point. In the first part of October 2014, at the United Nations, Ambassador Vince Henderson joined the ambassadors of the OECS, derailed the long outstanding CARICOM census supporting the right to self-determination for the people of Western Sahara. It must be borne in mind that CARICOM has always been in the vanguard of the campaign for self-determination for oppressed and colonized peoples, including Western Sahara. It is indeed a travesty that Dominica has now distanced itself from the African Union, ALBA, and international census on the important issue of decolonization matter. 13. Ruzi Douglas, in his inaugural address as Prime Minister, pledged that his administration would, open quote, evolve a political culture that is intolerant to corruption, close quote. He placed good governance, transparency, accountability, and integrity at the top of his agenda. Pierre Charles was unwavering in his commitment to this principle and passed the Integrity in Public Office Act in 2003. In the last several years, the Roosevelt-Skerrit regime has been besieged by scandal and numerous allegations of corruption to which the administration has not responded in a satisfactory manner. What is most disconcerting is the arbitrary manner in which the Integrity Commission has been sidelined, muzzled, and rendered totally impotent. Number 14. Rosie was a steadfast advocate for campaign finance reform. He spoke about the need for, open quote, robust control over election spending to ensure that all political parties are properly accountable to the people of Dominica, to prevent conflict of interest and the exercise of improper influence, close quote. He warned, open quote, we need to ensure that politics in this country does not become a matter who can spend the most. This is wrong. This is very wrong, close quote. In the last two election campaigns, we have seen the Labour Party spend millions of dollars from sources that remain secret. 15. When Roosevelt Skerrit assumed the mantle of leadership of this country upon the death of Pierre Charles on January 8, 2004, there was such promise and hope of a bright and new dawn for Dominica. After 10 years, his leadership has become mired in a quicksand of bad governance, lack of transparency, a complete lack of integrity, and a deteriorating economy. 16. While progress has been made in some areas, such as in infrastructure development, geothermal energy exploration and education, the Labour Party government has yet to build a foundation of a sustainable economy, vitally important in the post-banana era. The government, to its detriment, has ridiculed concerned citizens who have expressed their concerns about certain aspects of the geothermal energy exploration program. The inability of government to attract significant investments in energy, water, agriculture, and tourism means that very little progress has been made in building this new economy, which was the primary objective of our return to government in 2000. 17. 3 more points to go, people. An independent judiciary is at the heart of our constitutional democracy. But under the Roosevelt-Skerrit regime, we have witnessed efforts by government officials to undermine the independence of the magistracy. Point number 18. The contribution of Rosie Douglas on the national, regional, and international stage was significant. This man, who was the late Tim Hector, put in the same league as George Padmore, C.L.R. James, Franz Fanon, and Walter Rodney. To rename Melville Hall, which will be absolute in less than a decade, in his memory, is a brazen affront to his legacy. Point number 19. The visionary role of Pierre Charles in rescuing our country from economic collapse between 2001 to 2004 must never be forgotten. Affixing his name alongside Rosie at Melville Hall Airport exposes how low he is regarded by his successor. 20, which is the final point, it says here, this hastily concocted airport renaming on the eve of a general election has little to do with honoring these two great statesmen. It is about Roosevelt Skerrit attempting to use the huge reservoir of goodwill that Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles still enjoy to win another term in office. It ends by saying it represents hypocritical posturing of the worst kind. And that press release, you guys could also look up that press release as well. It is documented on DNO on the 27th of October 2014. in terms of authenticating what I just read. And Sean Douglas told me that both he and also Tiani Bihanzin, they penned their name towards that press release as their sentiments and their thoughts about DLP and Roosevelt Skerrit in terms of just how and what has become of the DLP. So, having read that, people, there's not much more I need to say about the posture and positioning now of Tiani Bihanzin on the 10th of this month, as he said to the public that he chose to go back home to the Labour Party in which his father helped funded and founded. So I need not say any more about that situation as it relates to Tiani Bihanzin and his decision to, in his own words, go back home to the party that his deceased father. A lot of allegations swirling around still that a couple elements in the Labour Party, or what passes for the Labour Party, may have had a hand in the death of his father. That is still yet to be proven as fact, but you never see smoke without fire. And for two prime ministers to have passed within the space of 8 months, and we are now stuck in a quagmire, as it were, with the one who took over 25 years after. Those who have thinking caps on should think very, very properly. Levels Espressy here. Sorry to say, but the Douglas family in politics in Dominica failed to defend the family's legacy as true labor rights, especially the one that's appointed as Cuban ambassador. What a shame. Celia Sui says, they fool some people sometimes, but they can't fool other people all the time. Maliosri says, they have mouth, blah, blah, blah. As soon as Skerrit called them, they forgot everything. Bow down to Papa Skerrit. Folks, in the interest of time, it is already 7 minutes to 8 o'clock. And so I will skip the final round. As I talk about final round, I remember that, should I say fight, with Mike Tyson and this other brother. So we'll skip the final round, and we'll put the final round, which is where we're going to deal with some of Joshua Francis' statements or utterances in the public domain last Thursday. We will put that high up on the agenda next week, if the good Lord above has us in the land of the living, yeah? So we'll skip that segment for now. But I think you guys have gotten enough for tonight. It's like Dominica is like taking medication when the doctor prescribes it. So you don't overdose people. So I think that letter from Tiani Bihanzin and Sean that was signed all the way back in 2014, October that is, plus the letter from Civic Vibes, plus this bill application situation, plus an update on the appeals process. I think that is enough for you guys for the night to chew on in the coming week, digest it properly, and get ready so that we can do some more round of sharing next week, Saturday, same time, same place. Folks, tomorrow gospel on the Civic Vice program. You're going to hear sort of should I say, regional link program in that we're going to have a conversation. Alvin Thomas will not be with us tomorrow. So that leaves yours truly to navigate the waters tomorrow with two gentlemen, one from Antigua and Barbuda and one from a lawyer from Antigua and Barbuda and another brother from St. Lucia, as we will be talking about what seemed to be of late the erosion of democracy, the erosion of democratic rule in our region. These two educated, talented, skilled men, they will be coming to talk to us tomorrow about just how we as a people can help, restore what we have lost in terms of that erosion. So being tuned to that program 6 o'clock tomorrow. I promise you it's going to be an eye-opener, another eye-opener conversation. That is the learning platform, people. That is where you learn a lot of stuff. It's the application of those learning that will do justice to you. It is not just taking in. It is good to take in, but it is also good to apply what you take in. Yeah, and for sure, I can vouch for at least that platform. We try our very best to educate you, the masses out there, so that a well-informed people should be able to make well-informed decision when the need arises. So, Dominicans, thank you very much for your eyes and ears. I have to come out of your space now. But before I go, I just want to say thank you as well to a young lady, Felicia Charles. She was with me sometime this week, I think Wednesday it was. Yes, Wednesday or Thursday. Time flies so fast. She gave a good account of herself in terms of expressing what is on her heart, what is troubling her about some scholarship that the government of the day, awarded to them, and they're not forthcoming with, their promise. So I just want to echo her appeal again to the Ministry of Education in particular. If you know you cannot give 10 scholarships, I'm just using a figure, please don't promise young people who you say repeatedly so is the future and you guys are investing in them. Please don't promise them, start them off and let them off 3/4 way. Let them off halfway. To me, it's better you don't help than you start and stop. Please don't do that. We have come to understand that is how you govern. That is your legacy in terms of unfulfilled promises. But I'm just making a plea tonight on behalf of these young people, the younger generation in particular. At least you can try better in terms of living up to some of the promises to them. It has a long-lasting impact on them, and you don't want to be, as a government, that you should be the one who stood in the way that they cannot achieve their dreams or reach to the much high expectations that they have for the future. So I just want to punch that there before I leave. Thank you very much. Let me just leave you guys with a song before I go. That song is such a simple song, but it is so deep. And I just ask you guys to take a little time to listen. Just internalize that song that I'm going to punch in your hearing as we leave. It is none other than